Today, we're plunging into a pretty significant stack of source material. It details one of the most, well, explosive international incidents we've seen this year. We're talking about the interception of the Global Sumud Flotilla. And this wasn't just, a standard military operation. It was really a high-stakes collision of humanitarian aid, tricky geopolitical boundaries, and the detention of hundreds of people, including, of course, a very globally recognized activist. Our mission today is to try and cut through some of the noise here and analyze the immediate aftermath. We're focusing specifically on, well, two critical points. First, the intense legal and strategic arguments around the interception itself. And second, these jarringly conflicting accounts we have regarding the treatment and current status of Greta Thunberg and the more than 450 other activists who were detained. We need to understand not just what happened, but maybe why the narratives are just so bitterly opposed. Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay, so the basic facts. Looking at our sources, they seem pretty straightforward at first glance. The Global Sumud Flotilla, right? Several vessels carrying humanitarian aid, they said, was for Gaza. They were intercepted by Israeli naval forces. That was October 1st, 2025. But what's really crucial here, what immediately makes this a huge international flashpoint, is the location. The sources are clear. The interception happened while the vessels were explicitly in international waters.
Right, international waters. And that single detail, that's really the foundation of the whole legal controversy, isn't it? It sort of frames the entire incident around questions of, like, maritime law versus enforcing a naval blockade.
Precisely, yeah. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, I mean, a naval blockade, typically that's enforced in the territorial waters of the state doing the blockading, or, right up close to the coast being blockaded. So when you intercept civilian vessels carrying aid way out in international waters, well, you're immediately inviting some pretty severe diplomatic pushback. They're questioning the legality, the jurisdiction of that enforcement. Right. Now, Israel asserts its right to enforce its established blockade. That's their position. But much of the international community sees the freedom of navigation in international waters as, well, sacrosanct, almost absolute. So that creates this immediate inherent legal conflict. And both sides are definitely leveraging that.
Okay, so beyond that legal flashpoint, there's just the sheer human scale. It sounds like a logistical and diplomatic nightmare. The sources confirm after the interception, the vessels were seized, towed to Ashdod port. But the real weight of this, it seems to lie in that number, that staggering number of detainees. You said over 450 activists, plus Greta Thunberg, all taken into custody.
Yeah, that number over 450, it really can't be overstated. Think about it. Detaining a group that size, it creates instant global visibility. Massive diplomatic pressure just falls onto the detaining authority. It turns what might have been seen as just a naval operation into this really complex human rights issue, a political crisis, basically.
Yeah.
And it ensures that governments all over the world suddenly have, domestic pressure to deal with it, to check on their citizens, push for their quick release.
Right. So once these individuals started going through the process, processing eventual deportation, the conflict seems to have shifted from the sea to the prison cells. And this is where the narratives just diverge so sharply. As activists started getting released, some highly specific, often pretty gruesome descriptions of their time in custody started to emerge. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the sources we have contain several quite detailed eyewitness accounts. These are from released detainees, and they allege specific acts of mistreatment. The most explosive claims, the ones that generated immediate global headlines, they focused on the treatment of Greta Thunberg herself. Witnesses claim she was physically assaulted, specifically being dragged by the hair, and also that she was subjected to an act clearly intended to be deeply humiliating and symbolic. Being forced, they claim, to kiss an Israeli flag while she was in detention.
Okay, let's pause on that specific allegation for a second. Dragged by the hair, forced to kiss a flag. Why that act? Forcing someone, especially political figure, to kiss a national flag. That's a very powerful and highly symbolic claim. It goes way beyond just physical detention, doesn't it? It sort of transforms the alleged abuse into like a form of forced political conversion or maybe public humiliation.
That's exactly the key analytical point there.
Yeah.
It's a claim that seems designed to maximize outrage. If we were just hearing generalized complaints about conditions, the story might have less diplomatic weight, perhaps. But an allegation involving forced compliance with a symbol of the state that's detaining you, that transforms a claim into, well, political warfare, essentially. It suggests not just, poor treatment, but maybe an attempt at psychological and political subjugation. It's a very loaded claim.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just symbolic acts against the highest profile person either, was it? The alleged harshness. I mean, the overall conditions reported by these released activists, they paint a picture of maybe systemic neglect inside the detention facilities. We're seeing specific reports in the sources detailing really harsh prison conditions, citing everything from severe dehydration issues to cells allegedly infested with bed bugs.
Right. And those general reports, while maybe not as immediately headline-grabbing as the specific claims about Thunberg, they're potentially just as damaging in the long run. They suggest the authorities were either, unprepared for such a large number of detainees or perhaps were actively neglecting basic humanitarian needs. The reports about things like bed bugs and dehydration, they really amplify the picture of suffering that the activists are clearly trying to convey to the international press.
However, and this is crucial for balance, we absolutely have to stress the complete and total rejection of these accounts by the detaining authority. This is also reported clearly in our sources. The authorities didn't seem to offer nuanced rebuttals or partial confirmations. They issued blanket denials.
Absolutely. The counter-narrative from the Israeli officials is equally forceful, unequivocal. They deny all allegations of abuse, completely. And they've explicitly labeled the claims made by the released activists as, quote, deliberate fabrications and lies, intended purely for propaganda purposes. That's the official line. They maintain that all the detainees were treated strictly according to law. So for you, the listener, this means the sources present a perfect dichotomy, a real standoff. You have these detailed, specific allegations targeted violence, poor institutional conditions countered by complete, flat institutional denial. And the strategic goal of that denial seems pretty clear: to fully delegitimize the activists' claims and try to minimize the diplomatic fallout from the whole incident.
Okay, so that structural conflict, that brings us pretty much up to the present situation. And it seems to shift the whole incident again, doesn't it? From just a naval issue or a detention issue to an ongoing, very high-profile political standoff. We need to shift focus now, maybe entirely, to Greta Thunberg's current status. Because it seems like she has, through her own actions, unilaterally extended the political life of this whole thing.
That's right. While most of the other activists, over 450 people, have now been processed, deported, released back to their home countries, she hasn't. She remains in custody. Her current location, according to the sources, is given prison.
And crucially, the sources emphasize she's not being held just because of some administrative delay or a legal snag. No, she is actively refusing deportation. She is deliberately choosing to stay in state custody.
Yes. And this looks like a classic calculated act of political protest. It's a known tactic. The stated reason for her refusal, it links directly back to the flotilla's original mission. She apparently views her continued detention as a continuation of her protest against the Gaza blockade. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, she's essentially turning the prison cell itself into the next stage for her activism. It's like she's saying, okay, if the ships couldn't pass, then my body will remain here as a constant, visible reminder of the blockade and my commitment to opposing it.
So what does this all mean then? It sounds like the interception itself, well, it's successfully stopped the aid delivery physically, but it completely failed to end the political mission. Is that fair? By refusing to comply with deportation, Thunberg ensures this whole thing stays a daily global news story. It keeps maximum pressure on the governments involved, and it highlights the ongoing cost of enforcing that blockade. It seems to mean the diplomatic heat doesn't just end when the ships reach port. It actually intensifies when a figure this high profile uses their own detention, their own defiance, as a political tool.
I think that sums it up well. Our deep dive today really reveals a situation driven by strategic conflict on, well, pretty much all sides. You had the initial naval interception in international waters, which guaranteed a legal dispute from the start. Then the detention process resulted in these very detailed, specific, and often symbolic claims of abuse, which seemed designed to maximize diplomatic leverage. And finally, you have the lead activist's refusal to leave, which transforms her own detention into this enduring protest symbol. It leaves us with this stark dichotomy, these specific, quite emotive eyewitness accounts on one side versus a complete governmental denial on the other. And all of it serves to keep the political visibility of the Gaza blockade very high.
Yeah, the situation remains incredibly dynamic, it seems, very much ongoing. And given that her stated reason for staying in Jivan prison is specifically to protest the blockade,
Yeah.
well, it raises a pretty powerful question for you, the listener, to consider. What are the broader diplomatic and political implications when an activist, especially one this well-known, intentionally chooses incarceration over immediate freedom, using it as a tool of political protest? It's definitely worth tracking how other nations, other governments respond now to an activist using their own detention as this active form of high level defiance, something to keep an eye on.